Jake lowered Nick's weapon with a gentle but firm hand. Put it down. She could have killed us all by now if that was her plan. Nick reluctantly holstered his sidearm, but remained tense and ready. She's been lying to us from the beginning. Not lying, Zareth corrected quietly. Withholding information. There is a difference. Is there? Sam asked angrily. You've been spying on our entire species. I was assigned to observe and report, Zareth admitted. But I chose to help you instead. Of completing my original mission, Kate studied Zareth's features with medical fascination. You said you share 96% of our genetic code. That's closer than humans and chimpanzees. The implications troubled our scientists greatly, Zareth said. Such genetic similarity should not exist between species from different galaxies. Amy pulled up star charts on her portable computer. You mentioned ancient records about a great journey. What exactly do these records say? They speak of the first crossing, Zareth explained. A time when our ancestors traveled between the stars using knowledge that was later lost. But the records are incomplete and written in archaic language that modern Velthari barely understand. Could humans have originally come from your galaxy? Lisa asked. Possible but unlikely, Zareth replied. Your fossil records on Earth show clear evolutionary development over millions of years. It is more probable that Velthari ancestors once lived in your galaxy. That would mean your people are originally from the Milky Way, Tony realized. Yes, we believe a group of early humans left Earth, or one of the first human colonies long ago, and eventually settled in Andromeda. Over thousands of generations, environmental differences caused the subtle physical changes you see in me. Jake tried to process this information. So the Velthari are essentially human descendants who evolved differently. In the simplest terms, yes. Though my people have developed far beyond their human origins in many ways. How far beyond? Nick asked suspiciously. Longer lifespans, enhanced mental capabilities, more advanced technology? Zareth listed. But also some losses. We have become less adaptable, more dependent on our technology for survival. Is that why you wear the environmental suit? Kate asked. Are you physically weaker than humans? Not weaker exactly. Different. My people have adapted to controlled environments. We struggle with temperature extremes, atmospheric variations, and physical stress that humans handle easily. Sam laughed bitterly. So we're the primitive cousins who stayed behind while you went off and became superior beings. Superior is not the word I would use, Zareth said carefully. We traded adaptability for advancement. Humans retain the flexibility that allowed your rapid expansion across multiple worlds. But your people see us as a threat, Amy pointed out. Some do. The discovery that humans were spreading across our galaxy triggered intense debate. 3 main factions emerged with very different opinions about what should be done. Tell us about these factions, Jake ordered. Zareth settled back in her chair, her silver hair catching the light. The Dominion faction believes humans must be stopped before you become too powerful. They see human expansion as chaotic and dangerous. Dangerous how? Lisa asked. Your species colonizes worlds without regard for existing ecosystems. You terraform planets to suit human needs rather than adapting to local conditions. You multiply rapidly and consume resources at an unsustainable rate. Sounds like they've made up their minds about us, Nick growled. The Dominion faction wants to limit human expansion to a small number of worlds under Velthari supervision, Zareth continued. They would destroy your interstellar capability and reduce humanity to a manageable population. That's genocide, Kate said with horror. Not quite. They would allow humans to survive, but never to threaten Velthari interests again. Jake felt cold anger building in his chest. And the other factions? The Isolation faction wants to avoid contact entirely. They believe humans and Velthari should develop separately, with clear boundaries between our territories. That doesn't sound so bad, Tony said. It would require forcing humanity back to a much smaller region of space, Zareth explained. All human colonies beyond a certain boundary would need to be abandoned. Still better than extermination, Sam muttered. The third faction is called Integration, Zareth continued. They believe the discovery of humans proves that separation was a mistake. They want to reveal the truth and attempt reunification of our species. Reunification? Amy asked. What would that look like? Cultural exchange, shared technology, joint colonization efforts. Eventually, perhaps even genetic reintegration over many generations. Which faction do you belong to? Jake asked directly. I was sent here by Integration faction leaders, Zareth admitted. My true mission was not just to observe humans, but to assess whether peaceful contact was possible. And what's your assessment? Nick demanded. That integration is correct. Humans and Velthari are stronger together than apart. Your adaptability, combined with our technology, could benefit both species. Lisa had been quiet, thinking through the implications. You said other Velthari ships are coming here. Which faction sent them? I do not know, Zara said with obvious worry. My extended silence may have triggered a response from any of the three factions. How long before they arrive? Jake asked. Perhaps days. Perhaps hours. Velthari ships are faster than human vessels. Can you contact them? Explain what's happening here? I can try. But if they are from the Dominion faction, they may see my cooperation with you as treason. Amy looked up from her computer. What exactly did you report to your superiors? That I encountered a disabled human vessel and was studying their repair methods. I requested additional time to complete my observations. Did you mention that we know about the genetic connection? Kate asked. No. That information would have triggered immediate intervention regardless of which faction received it. Jake stood and paced across the small lounge. So we have unknown Velthari ships coming here, probably armed, and they don't know that we've learned the truth about our species' connection. Correct. And depending on which faction they represent, they might try to capture us, kill us, or forcibly relocate us. Those are possible outcomes, Zareth agreed reluctantly. What about the fourth option? Tony asked. What if we convince them that humans aren't a threat? The Dominion faction would not be swayed by words, Zareth replied. They have already decided humans are dangerous. But the Integration faction might listen, Lisa suggested. If the ships belong to Integration, yes. They will be interested in establishing formal first contact. Nick checked his weapon again. And if they're from this Isolation faction, they would likely demand that you return to human space and never venture into this region again. Jake stopped pacing. Is there any way to tell which faction sent the ships before they get here? Velthari vessels have different designs depending on their purpose and origin, Zareth explained. Military ships from the Dominion faction are heavily armed and angular. Integration faction ships are designed for exploration and diplomacy. Isolation faction ships are built for long-range patrol and enforcement. Could you teach us to recognize the differences? Amy asked. Yes, but that knowledge might not help you survive the encounter. Why not? Jake asked. Because I'm supposed to be working alone. When they see that I have revealed myself to you and shared information about Velthari society, they may conclude that I have been compromised. Compromised how? Kate asked. They may believe you have captured and interrogated me, or that I have betrayed my mission and chosen to side with humans. Have you? Jake asked quietly. Zara single quotes met his eyes directly. Yes, I have chosen to side with what I believe is right, regardless of the consequences to myself. The crew sat in stunned silence as the full implication sank in. They were caught in the middle of an alien political crisis that could determine the future of humanity. And their only ally was a defector who might be seen as a traitor by her own people. How much time do we have before these ships arrive? Jake asked. Unknown. But I suggest we prepare for multiple scenarios, such as fighting, fleeing, or negotiating. The outcome will depend largely on factors beyond our control. Jake looked around at his crew. 6 humans and 1 alien who had chosen to trust them with the most dangerous secret in the galaxy. Whatever happened next would change everything for both species. The third day of repairs started like the others, with Zareth working alongside Lisa and Tony in the engine room. The quantum drive core was nearly complete, with only the final calibration procedures remaining. The cramped space was hot from the running machinery and the heat of the planet's sun beating down on the ship's hull. "We need to access the core housing from the inside," Lisa explained, pointing to a narrow maintenance tunnel. "It's going to be tight and very hot in there." "I can manage," Zareth said, gathering her tools. "The environmental suit provides adequate protection." They crawled into the maintenance tunnel, which was barely wide enough for one person. The temperature inside was stifling, even for the humans. Zareth's suit began making unusual sounds, soft beeping noises that grew more frequent as they worked. "Is your suit okay?" Tony asked, noticing the sounds. "Minor cooling system adjustments," Zareth replied, but her voice sounded strained. "Please continue with the work." They spent 2 hours in the tunnel, fine-tuning the quantum matrix alignment. The work required precise movements and constant communication. Sweat poured off Lisa and Tony despite the ship's air conditioning, but Zareth never complained about the heat. "Almost finished," Lisa announced. "Just need to connect the final power coupling." That's when Zareth's suit began flashing red warning lights. The beeping sounds became urgent alarms. She stopped working and pressed controls on her wrist display. But the alarms continued. "What's wrong?" Lisa asked with concern. "Cooling system failure," Zareth said, her voice tight with worry. "I need to exit this confined space immediately." But as they tried to back out of the tunnel, Zareth suddenly stopped moving. Her suit's alarms were screaming now, and through her visor, they could see her face was flushed with heat. "The suit is overheating," she gasped. I must." Without warning, Zareth reached up and released the seals on her helmet. There was a soft hiss of pressurizing air as she lifted it off her head. Lisa and Tony stared in complete shock. They had expected to see some exotic alien face, perhaps with different colored skin or unusual features. Instead, Zareth looked almost entirely human. Her face was elegant and beautiful, with high cheekbones and large expressive eyes that were slightly bigger than a typical human's. Her skin was pale with a faint silver undertone, and her hair was white as starlight. But she was unmistakably humanoid. Tony started to say, then stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Zareth looked at them with obvious fear and embarrassment. "Please," she said quietly, "do not tell the others yet. But you look almost human," Lisa whispered. "Almost," Zareth agreed sadly, "but not quite." They backed out of the maintenance tunnel in stunned silence. Zareth kept her helmet off as they emerged into the cooler engine room, her silver-white hair flowing freely around her shoulders. Now that they could see her clearly, the subtle differences became more apparent. Her ears were slightly pointed, her fingers a bit longer than normal, and when she moved, there was an otherworldly grace to her gestures. "We need to talk," Lisa said firmly. "The whole crew needs to know about this." "I understand," Zareth replied. "But please allow me to explain." They gathered the entire crew in the ship's main lounge. When Zareth entered without her helmet, the reaction was immediate and intense. Nick's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon before he caught himself. Sam's mouth fell open. Amy gasped audibly. Kate stared with professional fascination. "Well," Jake said after a long moment, "this is unexpected." "You look human," Nick said accusingly. "Why have you been hiding your face?" "Because the truth is complicated," Zareth replied, sitting down across from them. "And because my people have been debating what to do about that truth for many years." "What truth?" Jake demanded. Zareth took a deep breath. "The Velthari and humans are related. More closely related than either species has wanted to admit." The silence that followed was heavy with tension and confusion. "Related how?" Amy asked. "We share common ancestry," Zareth explained. Genetic analysis confirms it beyond any doubt. Somewhere in the distant past, our peoples came from the same source. That's impossible, Sam protested. Humans evolved. On Earth, we have fossil records going back millions of years. And the Velthari evolved in the Andromeda Galaxy, Zareth said. Yet the genetic evidence does not lie. Kate leaned forward with medical interest. How closely related are we talking? About? Close enough that our species could potentially interbreed, Zareth admitted. Close enough that we share 96% of our genetic code. But you're from another galaxy, Tony said, confused. How is that possible? We believe, Zareth said carefully, that one of our species originally came from the others. Galaxy. Long ago, before recorded history, there may have been contact between the Milky Way and Andromeda. Jake felt his world spinning. Are you saying humans originally came from your galaxy? Or that your people came from ours? We do not know for certain. Our oldest records speak of a great journey across the void, but they are fragmentary and maybe mythology rather than history. Why didn't you tell us this from the beginning? Nick asked angrily. Because it has created a crisis among my people, Zareth replied. When we first detected human expansion into this region of space, we sent exploration teams to observe. The genetic testing results shocked everyone. What kind of crisis? Jake asked. Political and philosophical. For centuries, the Velthari believed we were unique in the universe. The discovery of a cousin species has challenged every assumption about our place in the galaxy. Lisa was processing the technical implications. You said you've been observing us for how long? Several years, small teams, always from a distance. We needed to understand human capabilities and intentions before making any decisions. Decisions about what? Jake pressed. Zareth hesitated. Then continued. What to do about humanity's existence and expansion? The room went very quiet. Nick's hand moved back toward his weapon. That sounds like a threat, he said coldly. There are factions among my people who see it that way, Zareth admitted. Some believe humans pose a potential threat to Velthari dominance in this galaxy. They advocate for preemptive action. Preemptive action meaning what exactly? Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew. Suppression of human expansion. Destruction of your colonies if necessary. Complete elimination of the human species if all else fails. The crew exchanged alarmed glances. This peaceful first contact had suddenly become much more dangerous. And what do you believe? Jake asked quietly. I believe those factions are wrong. Zareth said firmly. Working with you these past days has confirmed my suspicions. Humans are not enemies to be destroyed. You are family that has been lost for too long. But you're not the one making the decisions, Amy pointed out. No, Zareth agreed. I am merely a scout and researcher. My mission was to study human capabilities and report back to my superiors. And what exactly have you been reporting? Nick demanded. Zareth looked uncomfortable. That is where the situation becomes more complicated. How complicated? Jake asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. I was supposed to plant surveillance devices on your ship, Zareth confessed, and gather detailed information about human military capabilities, expansion plans, and potential weaknesses. The room erupted in angry voices. Nick stood up and drew his weapon. Sam started shouting about betrayal. Lisa backed away from the alien. She had been working beside for 3 days. But I have not done these things, Zareth said loudly, trying to speak over the commotion. I have placed no surveillance devices. I have gathered no military intelligence. I have reported only that your ship suffered mechanical failure and required assistance. Why should we believe you? Nick demanded, his weapon trained on her. Because if I had wanted to harm you or gather intelligence, I would not have revealed my true appearance, Zareth replied calmly. I would have completed the repairs, sent you on your way, and filed my report. Instead, I am telling you the truth. Jake held up his hand for silence. Why? Why tell us the truth? Zareth looked directly at him. Because these 3 days have shown me that the hardline factions among my people are wrong about humans. You are not conquerors or destroyers. You are explorers and builders. You showed kindness to a stranger and accepted help from an alien species without hesitation. So what happens now? Jake asked. Now we must decide what to do with the truth we both know, Zareth replied. Because other Velthari ships are already on their way here to investigate my extended silence. The first day of repairs went better than anyone expected. Zareth worked alongside Lisa and Tony in the engine room, her alien fabrication devices creating perfect replacement parts with amazing speed. The equipment hummed quietly as it shaped metal and crystal into exactly what they needed. I've never seen anything like this, Lisa said, watching the quantum processor take shape inside one of Zareth's machines. How does it know the exact specifications? The fabricator scans the damaged components and recreates them at the molecular level, Zareth explained patiently. Your quantum drive design is actually quite elegant for its simplicity. Tony wiped sweat from his forehead as he installed a new cooling unit. You keep saying our stuff is simple. Is your technology really that much more advanced? Advanced is the wrong word, Zareth said thoughtfully. Different might be better. We develop technology to be seamless and automatic. You create technology that can be repaired and modified in the field. What do you mean? Lisa asked. This cooling system, for example. Zareth gestured to what Tony was working on. A Velthari ship would use bioorganic coolants that self-regulate and never need maintenance. But if something went wrong, the entire system would need replacement. While our system can be fixed with spare parts and creativity, Lisa finished. Understanding. Exactly. Your approach allows for what I call creative inefficiency. When proper tools are unavailable, humans find unexpected solutions. Lisa smiled despite herself. Creative inefficiency. I like that. Outside the ship, Nick. Torres had initially planned to watch Zareth with constant suspicion. But as the hours passed, his wariness gradually faded. The alien worked quietly and never asked about weapons systems or military capabilities. She seemed genuinely interested only in helping them repair their ship. She's been working for 6 hours straight, Nick reported to Jake. Never took a break. Never stopped to look around at anything except engine parts. Still bothers you that she won't take off that helmet? Jake asked. A little, Nick admitted. But maybe her people just have different customs about that stuff. Inside the ship, Amy Chum was fascinated by Zareth's knowledge of galactic geography. During a brief rest period, the alien had pointed out star systems on Amy's navigation. Charts and shared information about safe travel routes. Your people avoid the Helix Nebula, Zareth observed, looking at their planned course to Colony 7. That is wise. The gravitational distortions there can tear ships apart. How do you know where we're going? Amy asked. Your navigation computer was scanning for the optimal route when I examined your systems, Zareth explained. I notice you plot courses that avoid certain regions entirely. We've lost ships in some areas, Amy said carefully. Space can be dangerous. Indeed it can. There are territorial species that do not welcome visitors. Your people seem to have learned this quickly. Have you encountered these territorial species? Amy asked Zara single quotes that was quiet for a moment. The Velthari prefer to avoid conflict when possible. We have learned which areas of space are best left undisturbed. Sam Rodriguez joined their conversation, curious about alien spacecraft design. Your ship doesn't look like anything we've ever seen. How does it fly without visible engines? Gravity manipulation, Zareth said simply. We learned long ago that pushing against space itself is more efficient than chemical or ion propulsion. Could you teach us how that works? Sam asked eagerly. Perhaps. Someday, Zareth replied vaguely. Such technology requires careful understanding to use safely. Kate Wilson observed Zareth from a medical perspective throughout the day. The aliens' movements were graceful and controlled, but Kate noticed small signs of discomfort. Occasional pauses in her work, slight adjustments to her suit's position, subtle shifts in posture. "Are you feeling all right?" Kate asked during one such moment. "I am functioning within normal parameters," Zareth replied formally. "That's not what I asked," Kate said gently. "You seem uncomfortable sometimes. Extended use of environmental suits can be constraining," Zareth admitted. "But it is necessary for my safety. Is our atmosphere toxic to your species?" "Not toxic exactly, but different enough to require precautions." Kate made a mental note to monitor Zareth more closely. As a doctor, she recognized evasive answers about health concerns. By evening, the quantum drive's cooling system was completely repaired, and the new power regulators were installed. The progress exceeded everyone's expectations. "At this rate, we'll be ready to leave tomorrow night," Lisa announced happily. "Excellent," Jake said. "Zareth, we can't thank you enough for your help. It has been my pleasure," the alien replied. "Working with human engineers has been most educational." "Educational how?" Tony asked. "Watching you solve problems." "When the power coupling did not fit properly, you modified the housing rather than fabricating a new part. A Velthari engineer would have created a perfect replacement." "But that would have taken longer," Lisa pointed out. "Yes, your solution was faster and equally effective. This is what I mean by creative inefficiency." As the crew prepared dinner, they invited Zareth to join them. She declined politely, saying she had her own nutrition requirements. But she sat with them anyway, asking questions about human culture. "You traveled together for months at a time," she observed. "How do you maintain harmony in such confined spaces?" "We don't always," Nick laughed. "Sometimes people get on each other's nerves, but we work through it," Amy added. "We tell jokes, share stories, play games. Anything to keep morale up." "Jokes?" Zara sounded curious. "This refers to humorous statements? Want to hear one?" Sam grinned. "Why don't scientists trust atoms?" "I do not know," Zareth replied seriously. "Because they make up everything." The crew groaned at the old joke, but Zareth was silent for a moment. Then she made a sound that might have been laughter. "I believe I understand," she said. "The humor comes from the double meaning of make up. Very clever." "You don't have jokes in Velthari culture?" Kate asked. "We have different forms of entertainment," Zareth said carefully. "Your humor is quite unique." Jake found himself genuinely liking the alien. She was helpful, polite, and seemed honestly interested in learning about humans. But he still sensed she was holding back important information. "Zareth, can I ask you something personal?" "You may ask. I may not answer." "Fair enough. You said your people have been observing us. Why? What makes humans so interesting to the Velthari?" Zareth was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was thoughtful. "Your species spreads across the galaxy faster than any we have seen. In less than 300 years, you have established colonies on dozens of worlds. Most species take millennia to achieve such expansion." "Is that bad?" Jake asked. "Not bad. Remarkable. But it raises questions about humanity's ultimate intentions." "What kind of questions?" "Whether humans seek to explore and settle, or to conquer and dominate." The crew exchanged glances. It was a fair question, and not one with an easy answer. "I think most of us just want to find new homes," Jake said finally. "Earth is getting crowded. We need more space to grow. And if you encounter other species on these new worlds, we try to coexist," Jake replied. "We're not looking for fights." "That is reassuring to hear," Zareth said. "Not all spacefaring species share such peaceful intentions." As the evening progressed, Zara shared more stories about her travels and asked thoughtful questions about human music, art, and philosophy. She seemed particularly fascinated by human concepts of family and friendship. "You form bonds with individuals outside your genetic lineage," she observed. "This crew treats each other as family, despite sharing no blood relationships. We spend more time together than we do with our real families, Lisa explained. After a while, you start caring about people. Caring. Zareth repeated the word as if testing its meaning. An interesting concept. Later, as the crew settled in for the night, Jake noticed Zareth standing alone outside her ship, looking up at the alien stars. She seemed lonely somehow, despite her earlier social interactions. He wondered what had brought her to this remote world, so far from her own people. "Greetings, travelers from Earth," the alien said in perfect English. Her voice came through speakers built into her environmental suit, clear and melodious. "I am Zareth of the Velthari. I detected your emergency landing and came to offer assistance." Jake stepped forward slowly, his hands visible and empty. Behind him, Nick kept his weapon ready but pointed down. The rest of the crew gathered near the ship's entrance, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison," he said carefully. "How do you know we're from Earth? And how do you speak our language?" "Your ship's design is distinctly human," Zareth replied, walking closer with fluid movements. "We have been observing your species' expansion into this region of space with great interest. As for your language, our translation systems are quite advanced." She stopped, about 10 feet away, and tilted her helmeted head slightly. Through the dark visor of her suit, they could see the faint outline of a face, but no details. "You said you detected our landing," Jake said. "Are there others of your kind on this planet?" "I am alone here," Zareth answered. "I am a researcher, studying the unique mineral compositions of this world. Your arrival is unexpected, but not unwelcome." Nick stepped up beside Jake, still suspicious. "What kind of minerals are you studying?" "Rare crystalline structures that form under specific gravitational conditions," she explained. "This planet sits at an interesting intersection of stellar forces that creates materials found nowhere else." Lisa pushed past the others, her engineer's curiosity overcoming caution. "What kind of materials?" "We need specific components to repair our quantum drive." Zareth turned toward Lisa with what seemed like approval. "Ah, you must be the ship's engineer. Your quantum drive uses crystallized xenon matrices, does it not?" "How could you possibly know that?" Lisa asked, amazed. "We have studied human technology extensively," Zareth said. "Your engineering approach is fascinating to us. Less elegant than our methods, perhaps, but incredibly resourceful." Sam Rodriguez crossed his arms defensively. "Are you saying our technology is primitive?" "Not primitive," Zareth corrected quickly. "Different. Your people have a remarkable ability to create solutions with limited resources. Where we might use expensive bioorganic processors, humans achieve similar results with clever programming and redundant systems." Jake found himself warming to the alien despite his caution. "You said you've been observing us." "Why? Your species interests us greatly," Zareth replied. "In a relatively short time, you have spread across dozens of worlds. Most species take millennia to achieve such expansion. Yet you have done it in mere centuries. Most species?" Amy Chun spoke up from behind the group. "How many other intelligent species are out there?" "More than you might think," Zareth said with what might have been amusement in her voice. "But fewer than there once were. The galaxy can be challenging for developing civilizations." Nick's grip tightened on his weapon. "Are you threatening us?" "Quite the opposite," Zareth said, raising both hands peacefully. "I admire your people's tenacity. That is why I wish to help repair your vessel." Lisa stepped closer to the alien. "You can actually help us fix the quantum drive?" "I believe so," Zareth nodded. "My ship carries fabrication equipment capable of creating the components you need. However, integrating Velthari technology with human systems will require careful work." "How long would it take?" Jake asked. "Several days at minimum," Zareth replied. "Perhaps longer. The compatibility issues are complex." Tony Blake had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. "What do you want in return?" Nothing more than the opportunity to observe human engineering methods, Zareth said. Your problem-solving approaches could teach us much. Jake looked at his crew. They were stranded on an alien world with a broken ship and limited supplies. This being claimed she could help them, but trusting an unknown alien species seemed incredibly risky. Can you give us a moment to discuss this? Jake asked. Of course, Zareth said. I will return to my ship and begin preparing the necessary equipment. She walked away with the same fluid grace, leaving the humans to debate among themselves. I don't like it, Nick said immediately. She knows too much about us. About our technology, our expansion, everything. But she's offering to help, Lisa argued. Without her fabrication equipment, we're stuck here permanently. What if it's a trap? Sam asked. What if she's planning to capture us or steal our ship? With what army? Tony pointed out. She's alone, and our ship is already broken. Amy pulled up star charts on her portable scanner. The nearest human outpost is weeks away, even if we send a distress signal. And our long-range communications were damaged in the landing. Kate Wilson, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. She doesn't seem hostile. Her body language appears non-threatening. You can tell body language through that suit? Nick asked. Skeptically. Subtle things? Kate explained. Posture, movement patterns, the way she keeps her hands visible. If she meant harm, I'd expect different behaviors. Jake watched Zareth in the distance as she worked at her ship. The alien vessel had opened up like a flower, revealing complex machinery inside. Lisa, what's your professional opinion? Could she actually help us? If her fabrication technology is as advanced as she claims, yes, Lisa said. Human quantum drives aren't that complicated in principle. The hard part is manufacturing components to precise specifications. But do we trust her? Jake asked. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Captain, we're stuck on an alien world with a broken ship. We can either trust her and maybe get home, or refuse her help and definitely stay here forever. Jake made his decision. All right, we'll accept her help. But we stay alert and we don't give her access to any critical ship systems. They walked back toward Zareth, who was now carrying several pieces of equipment toward their ship. The alien. Technology looked organic somehow, with smooth surfaces that seemed to flow rather than having been built. We accept your offer, Jake announced. Excellent, Zareth replied. With your permission, I would like to examine the damaged systems first. Understanding the extent of the problems will help me determine the best approach. Lisa nodded eagerly. The quantum drive core is in the engine room. I can show you the damage. As they walked toward the ship, Jake noticed something odd. The alien kept her environmental suit sealed even though their ship's sensors showed the planet's atmosphere was safe for humans. He wondered if the air was toxic to her species, or if there was another reason she never removed her helmet. Is our atmosphere safe for you? He asked. I prefer to maintain my suit's environment, Zareth replied carefully. It helps me focus on my work. The answer seemed evasive, but Jake decided not to press the issue. They had bigger concerns then. Alien biology dot inside the engine room. Zareth examined the damaged quantum drive with obvious expertise. She asked detailed questions about power requirements, containment field specifications, and cooling system capacities. Her knowledge of human technology was surprisingly thorough. This is quite repairable, she announced after her inspection. I will need approximately 3 days to fabricate the necessary components. Is this acceptable? Jake looked around at his stranded crew. 3 days seemed like a miracle compared to being stuck forever. Yes, he said. Let's get started. The warning lights flashed red across the control panel as Captain Jake Morrison gripped his chair. The ship shook violently and sparks flew from damaged circuits. His crew worked frantically at their stations while the Pioneer's dawn bucked like an angry horse. Engine 3 is completely gone, Lisa Parker shouted from her engineering station. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she watched the readings drop to 0. Engine 2 is losing power fast. We need to land now, or we're going to be floating dead in space. Jake looked at the star charts on his main screen. They were in the middle of nowhere, carrying medical supplies to Colony 7. The nearest human outpost was 3 days away at full speed. But they didn't have 3 days. They barely had 3 minutes. Sam, find me a planet, Jake ordered his. Pilot, I don't care if it's made of ice or lava. We need solid ground under us. Sam Rodriguez's fingers danced across his controls. There's a world about 20 minutes away at our current speed. It's called Kepler 442b. The scanners show it. Has breathable air and normal gravity. Any signs of life? Jake asked. The computer says it's empty, Sam replied. No cities, no energy signatures, nothing but rocks and plants. Jake made his decision quickly. Take us down. Lisa, can you give us enough power to land safely? I'll try, Lisa said through gritted teeth. But after we land, we're not taking off again without major repairs. The ship groaned as they entered the planet's atmosphere. Jake watched through the front window as alien clouds rushed past them. The surface below looked green and brown, with what might have been forests and plains. At least it wasn't a desert. World, landing site ahead, Sam announced. It's a flat area near some hills. No obstacles that I can see. The Pioneer's Dawn touched down hard, bouncing twice before settling into the alien soil. Everyone stayed quiet for a moment, listening to the ship's systems wind down. Then Jake stood up. Damage report, he said. Lisa was already pulling up diagnostic screens. It's bad, Captain. The quantum drive core has 3 major fractures. The cooling system is completely fried. We're missing about half the power regulators. And the navigation computer is running on backup power. How long to fix it? Jake asked. With our current spare parts. Maybe never. We need components we don't have. Special alloys, quantum processors, things you can't just patch together with wire and hope. Nick Torres, the ship's security chief, checked his weapon and looked toward the exit. I'll set up a perimeter. We don't know what's out there. Good idea, Jake agreed. Amy, see what you can learn about this planet from orbit scans. Kate, check if anyone got hurt during the landing. Tony, help Lisa figure out exactly what we need. Amy Chum pulled up the planet's information on her navigation. Computer, the air is safe to breathe. Temperature outside is about 70 degrees. Day cycle is 26 hours. No dangerous radiation levels. Medical officer Kate Wilson finished checking the crew. Everyone's fine. A few bumps and bruises, but nothing serious. Tony Blake was already gathering tools to help with the engine. Inspection. I'll start taking apart the drive core housing. Maybe we can jury-rig something. Jake nodded and activated the ship's external cameras. The world outside looked peaceful enough. Rolling hills covered with purple grass stretched to the horizon. Strange trees with silver leaves swayed in a gentle breeze. 2 moons hung in a lavender sky. At least it's pretty, Sam said, looking at the view. Pretty doesn't get us home, Lisa muttered. But she was already planning the repairs in her head. Nick opened the cargo bay doors and stepped outside with his rifle ready. The air smelled clean and fresh, like rain on flowers. He walked in a wide circle around the ship, checking for any signs of danger. The ground was soft and spongy under his boots. All clear out here, he reported through his radio. No movement, no sounds except wind through those trees. Jake joined him outside a few minutes later. The planet felt strange, but not threatening. Almost too quiet after the noise and chaos of space travel. He kicked at a rock and watched it roll down a small slope. What do you think our chances are? Jake asked quietly. Lisa knows her stuff, Nick replied. If anyone can fix this bucket of bolts, she can. But we might be here longer than planned. Colony 7 is expecting their medical supplies, Jake said with worry in his voice. People are counting on us. We can't help them if we're stranded, Nick pointed out. First things first. They walked back toward the ship, where Lisa and Tony had opened access panels in the engine room. Pieces of twisted metal and burned circuits lay scattered on the floor. The damage looked even worse up close. "How bad is it really?" Jake asked Lisa privately. "Bad," she admitted. "I can probably patch the cooling system with parts from other areas of the ship. The power regulators might be fixable if I cannibalize the backup generators. But the quantum drive core itself, that needs materials we just don't have." "What kind of materials?" "Crystallized xenon for the matrix housing. Quantum-stable alloys for the containment field. Processing chips that can handle 10,000 calculations per second without melting. Stuff that costs more than this whole ship." Jake felt his heart sink. "So we're stuck." "I didn't say that," Lisa said quickly. "I said we don't have what we need. But maybe this planet has raw materials I can work with. Some of these metals might be compatible if I can refine them properly." Amy's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, you need to see this." Jake and Nick hurried back to the bridge. Amy was pointing at her sensor screen with excitement and concern mixed on her face. "What is it?" Jake asked. "There's something coming toward us. Fast. It's not showing up as a ship exactly, but it's definitely artificial, and it's definitely flying." Jake studied the readout. The object was about 2 miles away and closing quickly. It moved in straight lines with sharp turns, not like anything natural he'd ever seen. Could it be automated? Nick asked, checking his weapons again. "Maybe," Amy said, "but it's heading directly for us. Like it knows we're here." "So much for an empty planet," Sam muttered. Jake made a decision. "Everyone stay calm. We don't know what it is yet. Maybe it's friendly. Maybe it's just curious. Nick, get your gear, but don't point it at anything unless I tell you to." Through the front window, they could see a small dot in the sky getting larger. As it approached, the object revealed itself to be unlike any ship they'd ever seen. It looked almost alive, with smooth curves and a surface that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. The alien craft landed about 100 yards away from their ship. It touched down silently, without any visible engines or thrusters. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then a section of the craft's hull simply dissolved, creating an opening. A figure stepped out, tall and graceful, wearing what looked like an advanced environmental suit. The being walked toward their ship with confident, measured steps. "Well," Jake said quietly, "I guess we're about to make first contact." The alien stopped about 50 feet from the Pioneer's dawn and raised one hand in what might have been a greeting. Then it spoke, and somehow they could understand every word.